Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a powerful sermon that uses an ancient story to ask a really modern question. When all the noise of our achievements fades away, what is it that actually lasts? To find the answer, we have to start with a kind of strange, centuries-old mystery that involves a box of bones. So, we're not starting at the beginning. We're jumping centuries after our main character has died, to this wild scene in the book of Exodus. You've got an entire nation making a mad dash from slavery to freedom, and yet, right in the middle of all that chaos, they stop everything to carry the bones of an ancestor who's been dead for ages. I mean, this was Joseph's final, very specific request. But why? Why the bones? Why was that so important when, as we'll see, all of his other massive nation-saving achievements had been pretty much forgotten? Okay, just look at the contrast here. It's absolutely stunning. On one side, you have this incredible public legacy. This guy saved an entire nation from starving. He completely re-engineered their economy. He was the second most powerful man in the world. And yet, the Egyptians, the very people he saved, they forgot all about him. His public legacy just vanished. But his family, they remembered one deeply personal promise. And to understand why that promise mattered more than a whole empire, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. All right, let's rewind. Our story kicks off with Joseph at just 17 years old. He's the favorite son in what you could call a deeply flawed and very complicated family. And he wasn't just some innocent kid. He was a dreamer, sure, but his dreams were all about his family, including his 10 older brothers bowing down to him. And to make matters worse, he was apparently a bit of a tattletale, bringing bad reports about his brothers straight to their dad. You can just imagine how well that went over. It was a recipe for some serious family drama. Now get this, because this is a really crucial insight from the analysis. Their jealousy was so deep, they didn't just want to kill him. They wanted to kill his dreams. This wasn't just about getting rid of a rival. It was about totally extinguishing his future, everything he hoped to be.
So in this unbelievable act of betrayal, the favorite son gets thrown into a pit and then sold into slavery. And just like that, he begins this long, incredibly difficult journey, all alone and a world away from home.
Okay, so now Joseph lands in Egypt as a slave in the house of Potiphar, a big-shot official. And this is where his character, the one that was forged in that messy family, is about to be put to the ultimate test. And here's the thing that is so key to understanding how he survived all this. The world could label him a slave, but he never, ever accepted that as his true identity. He was operating from this core set of principles and values that his family, for all its flaws, had actually managed to instill in him. So you can almost see his strategy for survival right here. When his master's wife tried to seduce him, he refused. And it wasn't because of some written rule. Remember, the 10 Commandments hadn't even been written yet. It was because of his internal principles. And later, when he's falsely accused, he knows when to just keep his mouth shut, understanding that protesting would only make things worse, even if it meant being thrown in prison. And we're not talking about a couple of bad weeks either. He would spend 13 years, first as a slave and then as a prisoner. 13 long years of trials and isolation before his story would take another crazy turn. Then, finally, at age 30, that lifelong connection to dreams brings him face to face with the pharaoh himself. And he doesn't just interpret the king's dreams about a coming famine, he lays out a whole detailed solution. And with that, he goes from prisoner to governor of all of Egypt, basically overnight. And here it is, the ultimate showdown. The very men who sold him into slavery are now on their knees in front of him, begging for food. Joseph has all the power. Their lives are, quite literally, in his hands. This is the moment the whole story hinges on. What does he do with all this power? I mean, the natural expectation is revenge, right? He has every reason and every opportunity to make them pay for what they did. But in this incredible climax, Joseph reveals who he is, and he offers not payback, but a totally radical reframing of what they did. He chooses forgiveness. He looks back at all the pain, the betrayal, all those lonely years, and he sees a much bigger purpose in all of his suffering. And that one single act of forgiveness, well, it unlocks the entire mystery we started with. It's the reason why his family carried his bones all the way out of Egypt. You see, while governing Egypt was his public job, his true purpose, his essential mission, was something else entirely. It was about healing the very family that had shattered him. He used his public power not for personal revenge, but for family restoration. And this is where the sermon's message just becomes crystal clear. All the things that we think are so important, the titles, the power, the fame, the public achievements, they're all temporary. They just disappear. But the bonds of family, the really hard-won acts of forgiveness, the legacy of redemption you build with the people closest to you, that is what endures. That's why his family, not the nation of Egypt, remembered and honored his final wish. They weren't just carrying bones. They were carrying the story of their own healing. So when you look at it through this lens, Joseph's story becomes this powerful lesson about the difference between fleeting success and a legacy that truly lasts. His greatest achievement wasn't saving Egypt from a famine. It was saving his family from its own brokenness. And, well, that brings the whole question right back to us, doesn't it? In a world that's obsessed with followers and titles and public validation, it's so easy to forget what actually lasts. The sermon leaves us all with this challenge. Fame and fortune will fade, but the relationships we build, the forgiveness we offer, and the love we nurture at home, that is the history we truly leave behind. So, what story are you writing?